Welcome to our Dream in the Woods. I'm Beth.
I'm Greg.
When I moved to Idaho, back to Idaho, my brother-in-law, Erik, who is in the videos all the time, that lives on the property, I went to high school with him. Beth and I went to high school with him. So I've known him for like 35 years. One of the first things he says is, what do you think about going in on a sawmill? And I'm like, yes. And then right after that, he had already kind of researched Woodland's mills. And so then I kind of took that seed and then I decided what size to get and the extensions and accessories. And so so it was my project to kind of, buy it and set it up. And we set it up on our property, but we're joint owners in it. And so he was the seed that got me there. It wasn't in my wheelhouse until I got here to Idaho. And then just seeing we're just blessed with very good timber around here. North Idaho is full of timber, but just on our property specifically, just beautiful Doug fir trees, beautiful lodgepole pine, ponderosa, just these beautiful, majestic trees. And it's just kind of, for me, a way to honor them, to keep them on the property forever, and to be able to point to that and say that came from here. Pretty magical. Well, I guess the decision to start the YouTube channel just came from a place that we thought we were going to do something kind of cool, and we want to document it and just share it with our friends and family, and then just have that archived for ourselves, the journey of starting from scratch and building a house and all of the stuff that goes with that. And so we were always waiting for the bents on the barn to go up, and we knew that once those timbers started being raised in the air, that it was going to be really cool. And the YouTube channel, basically, I mean, we had been creating videos for a year and a half or so by that time, but we knew that when they went up, and then our viewership and subscribers spiked then. And yeah, now today we have a loyal following. It may not be the biggest following, but I think it's still crazy that 5 or 6 or 7,000 people watch the video within 2 days. And then some of the people that are in the comments feel like friends because they have been viewing and commenting for years. So it's pretty cool. I think the first project was the sawmill cover, and I kind of feel like that's a lot of people's first project, is that you get a mill and then you make a cover. And so and we've had just tons of people asking about the dimensions of the cover and what we thought of it and the bunk height and all that kind of stuff. But that was great practice to see what the mill could produce, and then what as builders we could do with that product. And so just getting the posts up and making your own beams and the sheeting and board and bat. That was the first project, and it took a long time. You're learning as you go, not only the milling but then the building part of it too. And so then right from there, we went from preparing all the timbers for the barn. And so that took a long time to get the cut list for that. And while we were doing the cut list for the timbers, we called it bonus material. And so we were getting all the girts, through 2x6 and 2x8, 2x10 girts. And then we were also milling 1x6s for the interior cladding. So we called that bonus material. So you were targeting the timber, but you were getting all this bonus material on the outside of the tree. So we were trying to maximize everything we got off the mill, or out of those trees. So then that was a big project. And then went to milling board and bat. So we're using one rough cut 1x10s and 1x3s for the batten. And we milled some of that out of white pine and ponderosa pine for the exterior. And then from there, another big project is then doing all of the interior boards. They're all out of Doug fir. It's a nickel gap, which is basically a lap joint. We've milled, there's about finished product, probably 5,000, 6,000 board feet for the interior, and there'll be more because we're trying to finish the bottom part of the barn now and move into there, and then we'll start working upstairs, and there'll be more boards that are needed upstairs. And then I'm going to make hardwood flooring up there too. So that's a future project. Our first grand scheme was just to build a barn that would be a wood shop and storage and equipment, and half of it would be heated and half of it would just be gravel and just act as a barn. And then we were going to build a separate house. Well, reality of building prices here and having someone do that, and then the cost just to build the barn, and we were already into that phase of the project and poured concrete and we're doing timbers and all that. The reality of cost of building a separate house from the barn, that's where it changed. And then I was already kind of had a handle on building the barn, so then what is it going to take to build a barndominium or build a space that is livable, is insulated and secure and laid out properly, and the plumbing and all that kind of stuff. And so we pivoted to then putting all our effort into how do we make this a house. And a lot of unique challenges with a timber frame barn, and it's definitely not like throwing up 2x4 walls. Everything's custom and size and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we've just been plugging away at it and then learning as we go. Everything that your eye can see is going to be off the mill. I didn't mill the dimensional lumber, the 2x4s or 2x6s, that are the wall components. I'm milling all of the board and bat for the outside, and then milling all of my interior, all my trim, and then we're using nickel gap on the inside. And then that will continue on through the upstairs and the front porch. And there was 140 timbers in the barn project, and that took a whole winter to do those, and used a lot of great trees. And so that was a whole winter of milling 3 to 4 days a week. And so and sometimes we'd mill all day and get 3 timbers. But some of the biggest timbers were 6 by 10 by 22 foot. And so it took a special tree and a lot of time to plan those timbers out to get what you needed. So that was a whole winter. And then I bought 5 logging truckloads of logs. They're about 6,000 board feet a piece. I mean, I think that you could say that I have done 60,000 board feet. That sounds like a lot, but I think that that's the case. I've been really happy with Woodland Mills. They've warranted a lot of products. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that's asking for a warranty, but I'll call and say I need this part, and then they'll just look up when I got my mill and think, oh, well, that's warranted. We'll just send it to you, and you're just, I mean, it's of course you're happy with that, but just calling and explaining what's going on and that you need this part, it just there. You guys are easy. You answer the phone and it's easy to deal with. So I've been super happy with Woodland Mills, and I recommend it for sure. So the other thing maybe I'd want to say a little bit, people that are thinking about getting a mill, is think about your whole layout of not only your sawmill, how you approach your sawmill, but how you're going to stack lumber, store lumber, sticker lumber, where you're storing your logs. There's a certain amount of mess that comes with logs and bark and cutoffs. What are you going to do with your cutoffs? Or you're going to cut those up for firewood? People going to come get them, or are you going to burn them? And then storing lumber, I spend a lot of time on lumber bunks is what I call them. And so making sure they're nice and flat, and then stickering them properly and putting tin over them and make sure they're in the shade. All those things that people kind of say, you should be thinking ahead when you where you put your sawmill and what you're doing with all those other components. Is worth planning it out ahead of time. Definitely learning as I go. I've done a little bit of building a shed, or and growing up in North Idaho, you always got firewood, and so you're cutting trees and running chainsaws and things like that. But as a profession, I'm a pharmacist, so I am not a builder or contractor. I never ran a mill before. I watched someone run a Woodland mill for about 30 minutes before I bought one, and that was the only experience I had. and then it's YouTube University for everything else. And so it's so cool, the volume of knowledge that is on YouTube, that you know, if you watch three good channels, three good things, you have a pretty good idea of what to expect. So I'm a study of that all the time. After watching other YouTube channels and homesteader kind of channels, and there's a good community of YouTubers around where we live. I think if you're going to try to do it, you need to try to do as best job as you can. Now you can spend a lot of time on a YouTube video, and then we did at the beginning stages, but then eventually you kind of just get into a rhythm of how your YouTube channel is going to act. You know, my opening and my closing is kind of the same, and how I'm not necessarily teaching, I'm just showing what I'm doing, because most of the time I'm doing something I've never done before. And so I think there's value in that for other people to watch someone do it for the first time. And I usually will be the first one to say I don't know what I'm doing, and if I make a mistake, I just throw it out there. Or someone in the comments says you could have done this better, and I'm like, well, hindsight is what it is. That is a way better to do it, but at least I got through it. So I know there's been a lot of people who've been inspired to get a sawmill from our videos, and it's just amazing that they're learning how to and acting on the videos to do something themselves. And I'm sure you're familiar with Sawing with Sandy. That guy, I mean, he was the one that made me think I could probably do that. You know, like, you just watch, he's easygoing, you know, and he explains things, he shows the steps, and you're like, oh, I think I could do that, you know. So I feel like hopefully people think the same thing when I'm showing them what I'm doing.